know this is recorded and it's streamed into Facebook Live as well, into the Successful Bookkeeper Australia. So for those watching on the group, if you'd like to put any comments on the video in the group, so we can monitor the chat in there as well. If you're asking any questions, if you're on the road or whatever, we could grab those questions and give any feedback as you're watching it after this event as well. And those on the call today, you can either pop yourself off mute and I can ask you if you want to have a chat, or just pop your questions into the chat box as well. So either way, so as we get into the topic today, which we are going to be talking about planning for 2021. And how we can create some smashing goals, or like start to smash 2021, as Sharon has said. So Sharon Francisco, welcome. Hello.
Hello, thank you for the welcome.
Yeah, so Sharon is going to be joining me today in our discussion. So Sharon is actually a staff member of Pure Bookkeeping last year. For how many years were you with Pure Bookkeeping?
A long time, 2.5 years, I think.
2.5 years, yeah. So doing a lot of customer service and sales and things like that. And before that, you were working with your sister-in-law in a bookkeeping firm. For how many years were you working with Tanya?
4 years. 4 years I was with
4
Tanya.
years? Yeah. So not as a bookkeeper, but as a manager, if you like, as sales, business development. Would that be a summary?
Yeah, definitely. When I joined, it was just Tanya and a part-time bookkeeper. And so, so we just built it to 12 bookkeepers. So, and Tanya was away for about 18 months of that time overseas, which freaked me out because I'm not a bookkeeper or an accountant. So that was pretty big learning curve for me. But yeah, it was good.
Yeah, but so you're in charge of putting the clients on and onboarding them and the customer service and managing the team. And I imagine you did a bit of planning during that time.
Just a little bit. Yeah. We were pretty strict on the planning, and that's why I think it's such an important topic to have, especially after the year that we've had. It's been a crazy blooming year. So I think sort of setting out a plan for 2021 is just a really important thing to do. But it always sounds so boring, Katrina. That's the thing. It's like, and you just pull out the old plan that you've had for 3 years in the drawer and kind of tweak it a bit. And I think there's a lot of benefit in having a plan that you feel really passionate and excited about. And it's not the one that's in the drawer that you tweak, essentially.
Yeah. I'd be interested to hear from those that are on the call today. Have you got a plan, or have you done a plan in the past? Have you got a current plan? So does anybody want to come off mute and have a chat around, what their current plan is? Or put in the chat box. Hi, Jacqueline Williams.
I have like I suppose the outside of a plan, but not the actual. I haven't actually fully gone through and done like something like a business plan where you have the implementation steps and stuff like that. I haven't got to that point yet. Simply because of time. And I think going forward, this is why I'm here. I really need to sort of focus on getting something that's implementable.
Yeah, because I know you've just opened a new office recently.
Yes, we're in our new office, and still a mess everywhere, hence having the background. And I looked at a thing you sent through by email recently about the 6 stages of growth of a bookkeeping business.
Yes, the business blueprint.
I saw that and I went, this is what I've been looking for, information like this, because I aim to get to the top of that to sell a business in 5 to 10 years' time to be able to retire. So that's exactly. It's given me something that I can actually concrete that I can actually put into and then break it down into steps.
Yes, that's exactly right. And
in terms of turnover, in terms of that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So you need to know what you need as resources to be able to move to that level, and it does even include when to put on an office if that's the way you want to go. I mean, nowadays you can certainly build a bigger business being remote, but if you have a desire to have an office and have staff in the office and have that presence, I think that's an awesome thing to plan towards. I imagine, Jacqueline, that you did have a plan to move towards having that, opening that office.
But it wasn't based on turnover, so I've probably done it turnover-wise a little bit prematurely. But I've got a great location that is on a very busy road with really good visibility. So I made the decision a little bit earlier because I thought that the visibility after I put my signs up are actually going to create more business for me. So that's the reason I sort of did it a bit prematurely.
Yeah.
So I've taken that risk, I guess, business risk to pay rent. But I did get a 3-month free rent. So
Nice.
I've got 3 months to get it up to speed,
Yeah. Yep.
That business blueprint, Jacqueline, was what really motivated me. The minute I saw that, I printed it out, put it up on the wall, and went, right, I'm going to black belt. That was like a big motivation for me, that, because it shows each of the steps, and it's like, to me, I could visualize that.
Yep, and that, just getting that email the other day, I just said, this will help me finalise my plan and finalise implementation steps, and make the elephant. Made me be able to eat that elephant, one step at a time, one bite at a time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And if anybody does want a copy of that business blueprint, Lou, can you pop it into the link of the Successful Bookkeeper on the thread of this video, please? That landing page. So when you did join Successful Bookkeeper, if you put your email in asking for it, we sent it to you. But for those that might not have had their email address in, that was the business blueprint you're referring to, Jacqueline. As you join the group, you get access to that. So Lou will do that for us, and Blair, you can grab that landing page from that link. Okay, I had some other questions come through. So Blair, I think, do people get walk-ins from having an office with road frontage? So you haven't really had any experience just yet, Jacqueline, of that?
Not yet, no, because I don't have signs up yet. I've just got, the sign lady came today to design signs for me. But it is a busy road, so as soon as I put signs up, I know that we're going to get people, I suppose, walking in or phoning us. And I've also got a really good 1300 number. It's 1300 Baz Guru.
Oh, no, I love that.
Awesome.
So I spent some time researching to try to get a number that is memorable, and but it ends up to be a number of a business that's been liquidated called the Cash Store. So I'm getting lots of phone calls from people wanting loans and stuff like that. So
okay. So to for them to get a loan, they need their numbers. So you could possibly help them get their numbers.
Yeah, I know. So I'm going to start some questionnaire. Do you have a business?
That's right. Well, we don't actually give you cash.
It might be another way of getting clients.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yep. Does anybody else have a storefront that gets some walk-ins? No. Doesn't look like anyone's coming off mute. So I know for myself that I did. I actually, when I decided to take my business seriously 5 years before I sold my business, I did get an office front, and I put signs up everywhere, and I was on a busy road that had a pedestrian crossing. So although my office was 3 deep down a little alleyway, if you like, I had signs out the front and the pedestrian crossings walking right into my signs, and the road stopping at the pedestrian crossing, seeing the sign. So I got a lot of people come in and say, oh, have you seen your sign there? I've been meaning to come in. And I got a lot of clients through walk-in. So
interesting you say that. I heard your story before. You say that before. And so that was in my mind when I was looking for a spot. And my place is right where a railway crossing is, in a very busy road. So whenever there's a train, the gates go down and everyone's sitting there for 2 minutes, up to 2 minutes, you know.
Yeah.
So
looking around. Yeah, awesome. And I think I've done a blog around the features to look out for when you do get an office. So there are so many things to consider when you do go out and get an office, including internet, parking, a whole lot of things. So there's a blog somewhere if you want to, if you put a comment on this Facebook thread blog, please, I'll send it to you. It's somewhere in the archives. Okay, Chris, hey everyone, my internet is not that great today, the weather, but when planning you need to remember your why and always have that in your consideration when planning. Definitely. We're gonna come back to that because that's probably the start of our conversation, Sharon, is around having a why. I'll just go through a few more of these questions. Eve hasn't had any walk-ins as such, but has phone inquiries and seeing the street front sign. Yep. So Lou, can you take a note of those people that are asking for a copy of the business blueprint, please? And the blog. Thanks, Lou. Awesome. Okay. So Sharon, we're going to start around on the why, aren't we? Know your why. And you need to be pulled towards your why and not pushed towards it. So you can speak to that.
Yeah, and I think that's the whole thing about like knowing your why, because if you haven't got a strong reason to do what you have to do to grow your business, it kind of just feels like a drudge and it's heavy, and it's not. I think to be pulled towards something is a lot more powerful than just trying to push yourself to do it. So if you're really, and I think for a lot of people, knowing your why is not easy. I don't know about you, Katrina, but like it took me so much effort and brain power to get my why the first time I went through this process. I was 22 when I first purchased my first business, and we got a business coach, and there was 4 of us in the business, and this guy actually took a whole day to get us to do our why. Because, you say that, I want to make $1 million, or I want to, build a massive big business, or you have a like general idea of what you want to achieve in your business. But I was so annoyed with him by the end of the day, because he just kept saying, but why? But why? But why? And it like, seriously, by the end of it, it's like, right. It got to like deeper and deeper and deeper. Yeah. And if somebody didn't, like, it was hours, and then he'd walk away, and then he'd go with my other business partners, and then he'd come back to me. And I'm always the problem child, but I was definitely a problem child with this. I just couldn't figure out, like, of course everyone wants to make money. That's it. Like, you make money so you've got a lifestyle. It's just that general sort of answer. Mm. What he got me to do in that 4 or 5 hours was get so clear to where it had to be a sentence. And I'll tell you what it was after that time. I was in a little small country town. We had a bumping, beautiful little furniture and interior design store. And we were I grew up in that town. We were indoctrinated there. Everyone knew us. But he got me to, my why was I wanted my kids to go to a non-denominational, co-educational P to 12 school in the city. And that was it. And within 12 months, we'd sold the business and we'd moved to Brisbane, and my kids went through a co-educational, non-denominational P to 12 school in Brisbane. And it was it was so powerful. But it was painful to get to that point. I just didn't know that was it. I didn't want, but the town that I was in was a mining town, and I didn't want my kids to grow up but working underground, because I didn't want them to work in a mine. So I'm like, what's the best way to do that? Let's get them out of the town into a city where they're not even associated with the mines. So I think that for me was a really powerful process, and the drive I had in that business to grow it then, and we did. In that next 12 months, we grew the business by 300%. And we still maintained our profit margins. And it was just like, I was so clear. I was like tunnel vision then on what I wanted to achieve. Yeah. So
it's it's as you said, the tunnel vision. It's that focus of exactly where you're going. And it is, as Deb Roberts often says, it's what you come back to when you get, the challenges of business, and you're down and you're unmotivated and you just want to stop. Then you just revisit the why. Why did you start business? or why are you continuing your business? You know, what are you wanting to achieve? So it really does pick you back up and keep you going.
Yeah,
If you have a really strong why and vision for your business.
Yeah, yeah. And unless you're pushed into that and have somebody really push that point, it's really hard. And that's why I think we don't plan, because, or we don't put as much importance on planning, because you sit in your own office by yourself or with a business partner and you write out, you know, a rough goal sort of plan of what you want to achieve without that deep sort of put your finger in and wiggle it around stuff on what you're really doing this all for.
Yeah. Yep. And a lot of us, well, actually, I might ask the audience, you know, what their why is. What do you have as your why? If anybody would like to come off mute or even pop it into the chat of what you think your why is, if you were to think about it now. Love to hear from you. Gail, you're off mute. Did you want to share your why?
Yeah, I don't have one. Sorry, I was trying to use my iPad. I was busy had to do something, so I've resigned. I think it's really important to have a good why, and I need to revisit that. I've had a few whys over the years, but I think that also does change. When you start in business, you don't have the real clarity. So that's been a really good reminder just listening this morning, is to really refocus and visit that why. So thanks.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for that. I know for me that or when I work with mentoring clients, the questions, the answers that I often get is for flexibility, or I want to work part-time, or I want to work around my children's timetables. And I say, well, go and get a part-time job that's going to work around those timetables. Go and get, if you want to, get money, or, if there's some superficial reason, then can you get a job to give you that exact same why? And if, often you can, it's just like, you'll just get part-time work, or you'll get casual work and you'll get that. But there's more in us that have gone out and said, okay, I want to start a business for that flexibility. I want, the good income, and I want to control what I'm doing, and I want to, be the yes man. I want to be the person that controls this as well. So it's not just flexibility and lifestyle, because how many of us have gone into the business for flexibility, and how much flexibility do we have?
By the smiles I'm getting, not much.
Can I jump in? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure, Robin.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm really focused on what makes me happy. So my why, I don't know if I can pinpoint it to one thing, but I'm really clear on what makes me happy, and I am very careful that I don't look at what other people have got and think that that's going to make me happy. So I really look at what makes me happy, and I also at the end of each year write down everything that I've achieved. So whether it's taken my parents on a holiday, or what I've done, because I know we do talk about like that achieving a certain amount of money, but I think the happiness comes with what you're actually going to do with it. So I write a list of all the things that I've done and the things that I've achieved, whether it's been through financial gain, or whether it's just been something that I've done that's made me happy. And then that gives me a really good jumping off point for when I'm planning for the next year and what I want to achieve with the next year, because I sort of acknowledge what I have done, and I'm often surprised when I look back at it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we know you as the lifestyle, or the nomad. What is it? The nomad traveler? Is that nomad bookkeeper?
The occasional digital nomad. I would like to be a digital nomad, but I've got a home I come home to, but I like to travel as much as I can. When we're not in the middle of COVID.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Gail, were you going to share your story?
Yeah, I was, because for me, I didn't start my business. I just fell into it. And I've always done it part-time. And just recently, I just said to Debbie, I said, I've always liked to have a part-time job just to be my crutch. I've never really focused 100% in my business. So this is the first time I actually 100% focused in my business. So it's a real good mind shift, a mind change to be in it more from a professional business side and not what I would call sort of a side hustle as such, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's been a big transition for me in the last couple of months. So that's really good. And just to revisit this has been great. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Good. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. I've had there's a few comments there if people would like to read them, of people's why in the comments there, which is awesome. Replacing husband's income, traveling. Yeah, so some really, really good whys there. So Sharon, what's the next point that you'd like to bring up around the planning?
I think it's, I'd like to talk about the resistance we have with it and what's underlying that resistance. And there's a subconscious thing that when things are not broken, so they're still ticking along okay, and you're getting enough clients, and you know everything sort of is going okay, why change? Like, and we have this thing, apparently it's inbuilt in us. It must be okay if we keep doing the same thing and it hasn't changed. So if we've been doing this for 5, 10, 20 years and we haven't really strategically thought about how we want it to do it differently, nothing's broken. So why change it? Like, it's working. We're making money. We're doing. So why even take the time out of your business to work on it if it's actually working? But in my experience, a lot of the times, and we're going to talk about this in the webinar next week, but it kind of sneaks up on us, our business. And while it works for a certain amount of time, you generally get really inundated with a lot of work. And then at deadline times, you're doing, you know, weekends and nights. And then all of a sudden you're chained to your desk and you can't seem to get away from it. So while it works in a sense, it's not working for some of the time. So, yeah, so I can see, Jeremy, you're smiling. Do you want to talk to that? So I think like a plan is really like, it's a decision to do things differently. And for me, I guess, like when I went my sister-in-law, I always thought that she just loved bookkeeping because she was always in the office, you know, working all the time. And then when I went to work with her, I just realized that she was just inundated. And that's where I sort of thought, okay, there's got to be a different way. Maybe we add some bookkeepers here and we can sort of leverage off the time a little bit, to the point where she went away for 18 months to a third world country with my brother and just did BASs. So like we set it up so she was able to leave and I was managing the bookkeeping business by myself, and I'm not a bookkeeper. So that was pretty freaky for me, but that required a whole bunch of planning to be able to pull her back from the business and I guess have faith in that whole process to be able to do it. But it started with a plan. We sat down like, how are we going to do this? What are we going to do to make this work? And we talk about it in the webinar, but it's scary to do that, right? When you think about like, well, what's possible for me? You've got the vehicle, like you've all got amazing vehicles to be able to achieve what you want to. And it's a beautiful industry because the government, you know, makes people do their BASs. So you've got to have that, you've got to have that mechanism to be able to keep building and building. And you know, it seems a lot of the times bookkeepers are able to grow organically, but they don't always end up with where they want to be. So planning is really important to be able to set your business up exactly how you want to do it. And the only difference between that is actually making the decision to plan.
Yeah, and there are so many aspects of the planning of what we do need to plan out, like you were mentioning with Tanya building herself out of the business. I mean, there's right down to the foundations of the business, like the stepping stones, like all of the, you know, the checklists and the systems and the client manuals and, you know, all of that stuff, right down to the, you know, that bottom foundation level. If you get that right, then you can plan for yourself or other staff to come in, but for yourself to move out of the business. So what is that going to look like? And like, it could take 5 years to do, or it could how long did it take for Tanya to be able to extricate herself out of the business?
Oh, it was pretty quick. It was too quick for me. I think she was still there. The internet in Senegal and West Africa was really bad, so that made me nervous as well. But I think from memory, it was within 12 months she was gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's quite a quick way of getting her totally out of clients or out of client contact over.
Yeah,
So
she was working on a few files, but just like little ones to keep her in, but not a lot. Yeah. But I think.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that Chris has got a comment here. If you have a plan, the overwhelmed feelings will become minimal. As you'll feel that you're on top of things. Yeah, that's exactly right. Chris, I don't know if you're able to come off mute, but did you want to talk to more around? I think you told me you had some technical issues before, so you don't look like you can come off mute. That's okay. But that's exactly what it is. And that's when you were talking about you've got to, you're not doing anything different. But like if you're just going to continue experiencing the same experiences, if you like, you're not going to do anything different because you don't have a plan. And you don't make a plan unless you are really forced into changing something, and the resistance that is there that is causing you not to plan. So how do you change that resistance? Because people will go on diets because they're feeling the pain of being overweight or unhealthy or unfit or whatever. They'll go on a diet, but then it drops off straight away. So we need to keep that momentum and that break through that resistance constantly to keep that plan on track. So how do you, can you talk to that? And how do you keep that on track?
To stick with the plan, do you mean?
Yeah. Because often bookkeepers will go, okay, I'll put a plan in place, and as you said, put it in the drawer and don't look at it, and then continue to work 24 hours a day or 10 hours a day and become unhealthy and go, okay, I'm out of here. Yeah. Whereas if they had a plan and kept to it, slowly, that they would have that opportunity to change the trajectory of where they're going.
Yeah. I think there's a couple of other things that come in. I noticed when I really started building my team of bookkeepers, I noticed there was a couple of things where there's a block with this sort of stuff, and letting go is one of the things, like letting go of the responsibility for a client, like trusting that somebody else can do the work just as good as you. I think there's because I'm not a perfectionist, and I wish I was a little bit more sometimes, but I notice there's a lot of perfectionism around making sure the work is really well done. And I think bookkeepers put a lot of pressure on themselves to make sure that it's perfect for the client, which I can understand because, you're paid to make sure that the work is right. But then when you transfer that to somebody else, it's like there's a whole bunch of fear that comes up around giving that work to somebody else. So if you've got in your business plan to grow, I know I was speaking with a bookkeeper this morning. She was wanting to grow from where she was and to start bringing on new bookkeepers. And if you've got that in your plan, it's pretty easy to keep that in the drawer, because that's pretty scary territory to go into, because that then means the two confronting things that I see is perfectionism and letting go. If you're going to build a team to grow your business, to give yourself that time, that's like right between the eyes, that sort of stuff. So a lot of the times that's why it stays in the drawer. So yeah, and I'll come to your question now about how do we stick with it. And I think there's layers to that, really, and we're going to talk a lot about it in the webinar. But I think definitely having a community around you and hearing, like being on a call like this and hearing what other people are doing, and getting, the taps on the shoulder to go, hey, this is really important. We talked to begin with about the why, and then now, about doing a plan and making sure that you're really excited about that plan and sticking with the plan and having people remind you about that and bringing together, being part of a community like this can help remind you, and accountability. And however that works for you, whether, like, I know Katrina and I both had a coach, and I know, like, coaches are really, I think, in everything in life, in sport, in business and such, it's good to have somebody be your unreasonable friend when it comes to reminding you and hitting you over the head with the satin baseball bat, just to keep you on track. And because, we all sit alone, most of us sit alone in our little offices I do with my cat, and no one else, if I don't do anything, no one's tapping me on the shoulder saying, Sharon, you need to do that. So I think it's, accountability, and you can do that in all different ways: community, paying for a coach, getting an accountability buddy, like teaming up with another bookkeeper and sharing your plans with each other. So there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can keep yourselves accountable to that plan.
Yeah, I'd be curious, Jacqueline. Jacqueline Williams, you do the accountability sessions, is that right?
No, I don't. I set up an accountability buddy before that started.
Yep.
And so I didn't end up. I went to the first one, but I realised that is doing the same thing as what I already had set up. But I set it up with someone from Pure Bookkeeping. She's on the call today. Yep. We meet for an hour or half an hour, depending on our timelines each week, and by Zoom, and we set some to-dos for the next week, and then we check in on each other each week on whether we've done it or what stood in our way and stuff like that. So we're sort of coaching and mentoring each other, really. And it went really well, and we've never met in person. So Zoom has just really opened up my eyes to how you can run business nowadays. So
definitely. And so how did you, I know how you connected through the community, but did you set some goals, because it's a half an hour a day, half an hour a week, it's not a lot of commitment?
No, we both realised we had very similar goals. We both wanted to have the Pure Bookkeeping system. We started with Pure Bookkeeping similar time. We both wanted to have it implemented for the majority of our clients by Christmas, plus sorry, my phone's ringing here. Plus, it's okay, I've got someone to answer it. Plus, we wanted our websites updated, and there was one other, and our social media presence. We wanted that to be a little bit more than what it is now. So we're both, my accountability partners, her focus is more on the Pure Bookkeeping system first, whereas mine, because of setting up this office, was to get the website up and running properly before the office opened, so that it would be in line with my signage going up. So then my next step is to get back into the Pure Bookkeeping system and implementing that fully. So, but we check in on each other, very similar goals. We check in on each other. How have you gone? You said this last week you're going to do this. So I take notes of what she wants to do and what I'm going to do. In the next week I say, what stopped you from doing that, or good on you, well done, good job. We recognise each other for what we have achieved. Even if you don't achieve what we've set out to do, what have you achieved? Like, is there something that you've done towards that? Because that's still something to celebrate. It's not. It's more about the time we've taken to spend on our business rather than in our business.
Yeah. Exactly, and that's exactly what we are trying to, encourage all bookkeepers to do, all business owners to do. That's why I just wanted to get an example of what you were doing and how easy it is, and that just connecting with another colleague, you don't even have to be doing the same activity. It is literally announcing to the world, or to your partner, your accountability partner, that you are going to be doing this, and then checking in each week. And we do have an ongoing one as a group as well inside the community, which is awesome. But just having that touch base, and if you do, I know for myself, I didn't have anybody to do that with as an accountability buddy, and that's why I went out and got a coach for somebody to say, you know, why are you doing that, or why are you not charging for that, or, you know, just questioning what you're doing, just challenging what you think is the right thing to do. It's good to, you know, be able to hold yourself, that, you know, you are on track with your vision, you know, that you are heading towards the right direction, because, you know, you've got the plan that's setting those steps towards the end result. And that person, whoever that person is pushing you towards those, finishing those goals and continuing on. Awesome. Is there anybody else that wants to jump off mute to talk about, because we might talk about what our goals are for the coming year, as if nobody's really expressed that they've created a plan, but what are your goals? What are you wanting to achieve next year? Does anybody want to come off mute and announce to the world what they want to achieve?
No pressure.
I want to move up to the second rung of the that
business blueprint. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. That. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Good. That's
but
fantastic.
Excuse me. Sorry.
And you've got a plan to get there of how that looks like, you know, when you normally go, I'm going to go up 100,000, I'm going to go up another 1.5 staff. You know, you need to know, well, how many clients that you need to have that. You need what resources you need to achieve that. All those type of things is part of the plan. Like, you can't just plan to be there. You've got to break that down. What are you going to do over every 90 days to get there?
Yeah, that's the bit I haven't done yet. So that's what the next month or two will be focused on, is getting that really clear on each week, you know, breaking it down to even weekly. Each week we need to have many new clients, or we need to do this much turnover, or you know, and so forth.
Yeah. Yep. Great. Awesome. Chris, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I'll try, and hopefully the internet doesn't cut out.
Okay.
I have lots of plans happening for next year, and I know Katrina and you and I had a lengthy conversation yesterday, and it just plan out what you want to achieve in the next 12 months. There's a lot of questions around where you want to be in the next 5 years. Forget that. Bring it back down. Okay, where you want to be in the next 12 months? Where do you want to be in the next 6 months? Where do you want to be in the next 3 months? And bring it down. And as Jacqueline said, bring it down to that weekly thing, and actually work out that sort of thing as well. So Nicole just mentioned, I'm not sure what is absolutely realistic for me in the next 12 months. Bring it further down. Bring it back down to that 6 months, 3 months, and even further. And plan what works for you. Don't worry about what all the noise is saying, what you should and shouldn't do and stuff like that. Do what works for you as well. That's what people need to remember as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's, you know, and I've spoken to this before, about putting the ladder up on the wall, and, you know, climbing the ladder and making sure you're on the right wall. There's quite a lot of times, and you've probably noticed it too, Sharon, in your coaching you've done, is it comes down to the vision of your business. Like, let's not climb the ladder to a business that you don't even want.
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to talk into what Nicole said as well. It's like, well, I'm not even sure, like, what was your question? I'm not sure, absolutely realistic for me in the next 12 months. This is the stuff that I used to really struggle with in my head. It's like, yeah, I'd like to add an extra 50 grand, but like, how does that, what do I even do to get that? And it sounds like it's like pies in the sky. Like, it's easy to write that down, but what does that actually mean? What does that actually mean for me? And so again, that's the resistance, because if it's not realistic, it's not even, you can't attach yourself to it very easily, I don't think. So, but I think there is power and some sort of sense of pushing yourself towards that by actually line in the sand, write it down. And sometimes there's a whole bunch of fear around just doing that, because it's like, well, I don't even have a game plan for this, but that's like a starting point. And we all know that a lot of what we write out, we don't actually achieve. Like, it's not, you know, we're not going to actually probably get that extra 50 grand. We might actually get 150, or we might actually get 30 grand. But by writing something down, you've got a little bit of a framework to work towards, to work backwards on how you're actually going to achieve it. But I know what you mean with that, Nicole. I was like that with planning as well. It's like, well, it's got to be real. It's got to be like tangible and real for me to write that. I'm not going to write something that's, you know, not real.
And she's actually made, for example, I don't really know how many clients I need to be earning enough.
Yeah. And that's just an exercise in working backwards with that. So what you're charging and really getting clear on. And again, you know, that's just like, I've got it up on my wall here, exactly what that looks like for me, because I've worked it all out and worked backwards. Does that mean I'm going to actually achieve that? Maybe not. Maybe I'll exceed it. Maybe I won't. But at least I've got a bit of a framework happening to give me that sort of guideline to work towards.
Yeah. And I think one of the things for Nicole, because she is just starting out, she mentioned that earlier on in the session, that you would start with how much money do you need to take home? So if you need to take home $500 a week, then you need to earn that plus costs. So your costs might be your Xero subscriptions and your insurance and your this and your that to maintain your BAS agent license. So now I need $800 a week. So how many hours a week is that? Does that look like? Or how many clients is that? I mean, we do want to get away from this hourly. You know, we're breaking down to $100, $80 an hour. So you need, you know, 10 hours to get to the $100. We want to move away from that. But as a starting point, you know, that's possibly where you're starting, is to know, well, I need to work a half a day to do that, half a week to get that amount of money. Or, you know, what clients do I need to earn that $800? So it could just be one client that, you know, you're adding a lot of value to, and you're doing some, you know, great service to, that they're willing to pay the $800 a week. Or if you have plans on creating a business with with lots of clients, and you're not just an employee of your own business, that you are looking for, you know, three or four clients. You want to avoid, right at the start, and I've, you know, recommended this to everybody, is to avoid just getting quarterly clients. They don't work for your cash flow. So you need, if it's $800 a week, you need to be working weekly to be able to earn that income as well. So break it down on a real practical level, as Sharon had mentioned, of what you need to do each week to be able to achieve that $800 a week. And it just gives you that little bit clearer idea of what you're looking for, rather than I'm looking for a client and I'm looking for whatever client will accept me. So you're looking for a client that's giving you some bulk hours per week to build up as quickly as possible to that $800 a week, or whatever that amount is to you. Does that help, Nicole? She's trying to find her mute button.
Can I just say why she's trying to find the mute button? Alongside of that practical work back from what you need, I also think there's, to go like right alongside of that, there's a lot of benefit in just throwing a whole bunch of energy towards it. So like when I saw that, that black belt ladder, I'm like, right, I want to go to black belt. And there's something that happens just with creating a whole bunch of energy towards something where things just drop into place. So, you know, I set a goal for myself of booking 5 accountants appointments a week. So I just got on the phone, and we don't suggest this, obviously, don't do it this way, but certainly all that energy towards me wanting to achieve that black belt, I think that helps alongside of a practical plan as well. So energy creates that motion to happen where things just, you can't stop like that momentum and energy. If you've got just throwing yourself at a whole bunch of stuff every week, if you've got a plan where you're, you know, for an hour a day, you're going to be doing some sort of activity for sales to build your business, and that's your goal every day, throw yourself at that for that hour. And then after a month or two, you know, things happen. Like you can't not achieve things if you're putting a plan into place and throwing a whole bunch of energy towards it. So that's like a practical as well as a bit of a, you know, just a bit of an energy and motion sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And Nicole would like to avoid watching the clock. I work for a BAS agent, working while watching the clock every minute, something new for me. Yeah. Well, that's what we want. We do want to move away from, and many of us, many bookkeepers have already achieved moving away from watching the clock or charging on the hour. And I'm not sure, Nicole, if you were in the book club where Ron Baker spoke last week. So that was really powerful, and I'd urge anybody that hasn't listened to it to go back and listen to that. It was on the Thursday last week that Ron Baker was on for 2 hours. Awesome.
So he gave, so I'm in love with Ron Baker. His whole concept, isn't he? He's just amazing the way he sees value pricing.
Yeah.
He's there's that 2 hours is well worth the investment. I tell you, I don't know where we keep it, but it's just
it's
awesome.
in this group, Successful Bookkeeper Australia group that we're watching from. Some of the concepts were, I think, were too over my head. I didn't quite grasp some of the concepts that he was talking about, but I have got his book. So, and I do like the idea of keeping it simple, like, you know, just planning on doing for one client. And this is, you know, again, when I mentioned before, Sharon, about planning at so many different levels in a business, it's to plan yourself out. It's to plan your systems, your foundations. It's to plan to put yourself onto value pricing. So, you know, we need a plan to do that. We don't just say we're going to start value pricing next month. It doesn't work that way. There's education, there's mindset, there's so much involved in getting to a point where you are now comfortable to launch out that value pricing for that one client. And there's a bit of homework and a bit of research and, you know, all of that. But if you don't plan it and you say, next month I'm going to do value pricing, and next month comes along and you sit there to do your value pricing and you go, well, I still have no idea what to do. I'm in exactly the same boat as I was last month. Then, okay, I'll start next month. But again, you'll be in exactly the same conversation with yourself if you don't plan out some actions over the month to learn, research, create that value pricing packaging or the conversation, mindset, learning, whatever it is you need to get one step closer the following month. And that's why it's so important to do some planning, no matter what you do in your life, in, you know, through business. It's really important to plan yourself out.
I think the trickier it is, the more we try to avoid it too, right? So value pricing is like a big sort of beast to take on. And yeah, I think it's easier not to put it into a plan because it's like it's a big thing to do. So having a plan in place and knowing that it does take time is a really important thing. So avoidance, that's what I'm sort of saying. The reason why we avoid doing the planning is because when it's big things like value pricing, it's like, oh man, let's just photocopy last year, next year sort of thing. Let's not photocopy 2020 for 2021. We need to make a difference. But yeah, I think that the trickier the step is, you know, like a lot of the times it's value pricing, putting your prices up, you know, bringing on, you know, staff members, team members and such. Like the trickier the process is that's outside of your core skill set of bookkeeping, the harder it is to put it in a plan and keep yourself accountable to it.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
we all avoid things that are tricky, which is natural.
Yeah, and change. And you know, change, comfort zone, challenges. It's all part of it, but it's part of being a business owner and succeeding in that role.
Yeah, for sure.
Nicole,
I think putting that dollar bet. Oh,
go
sorry.
on, Robert. No, go on.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it is hard to put out there, like, say what you want to achieve as far as money goes, because I think as bookkeepers, we like to tick the box. And so thinking that we might not get there, it's like, well, I'll just make it a bit lower because then I can tick that box and then that's nice and neat and I've done it. Like,
That's a
so
good point,
yeah. But I think if you do put down like what you actually want, like what you would like to achieve, I do that, and then each month I have a look at what my turnover was, and I write that down. And even if it's not quite there, I can sort of look at it and go, oh wow, like pretty close, or getting there. And I, you know, tally it up as I go each month. So there's definitely been times that I haven't achieved it, but I've been able to walk away and go, wow, gee, got close with that. I'm going to give that another shot. And yeah, but I do think we get stuck in that, like liking to tick things off.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And it's good to have those targets to keep you going across. It's the you know, and it's planning. Like, I'm going to achieve 200,000 in the next year. So how you do that is to get 10,000 a month, or whatever the equation is. So now I need 10,000 a month. So that's my target. So as you're doing, you're comparing. And I used to do exactly the same. Halfway through the month or towards the end of the month, I'd check if I was on target. And if I wasn't, then I'd push some invoices through. So I'd finish some jobs to get the invoices through to achieve that target. And then I've got, okay, next time I've got 10,000. Well, I don't have those invoices that I've just pushed through. So now I've got to achieve the next target. What do I have to do to achieve it? And which is, you know, finding clients or finding extra work. And it just rolls on like that. But without that plan, without those targets, it just doesn't happen. Not as quickly, anyway. Yeah. Nicole, you're off mute. Did you want to have a conversation to your questions and comments? Oh, you might be off mute, but we can't hear you.
You're very faint.
Yeah, no, I can't hear at all. No. Oh, yes, I can now.
Yes. Really faint.
Where's your microphone? Maybe you need to get closer to your microphone.
Oh, I don't know. No, I don't. I think most of my questions have been answered, but I guess at the moment I'm looking at defining my ideal customer, and I've been told it needs to be very, very narrow and very, very exact. And
what needs to be narrow and exact?
Ideal client.
Your ideal client. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can't quite hear you, Nicole. Yeah. No, that's okay. So if you want to perhaps type in, because the others can't hear either. Yeah. So to be really clear on your ideal client, I think that's an awesome action. To help you. My coach used to say, you don't want to put on anybody that has got a pulse and a purse. You want to find the right clients for you. So there is a plan around that. So you have to work on your ideal client and your avatar of that ideal client. So it is a good idea to work on that. So again, plan it, so for the next 30 days, you might research your ideal client. So again, it's not going to happen overnight. You need to, investigate what you have done in the past. What's your experience? What your skill set is? What's your genius zone? What do you do best? What are you passionate about? So explore all of those things, and they're, activities that mentors will do with you to find out, who your ideal client is. And then you start drilling down on that ideal client, and you work out what the services you want to provide and the money you want to earn from them, in terms of, you're not going to look for mum and dad clients, excuse me, if you are after a bigger client for a bigger income.
Can I say, Katrina, that was the hardest thing for me. I found it when, because my coach made me, obviously, who was your ideal client? And I was like, okay, so I had to figure out how many billable hours a month we'd be charging, because it was billable hours back then. We didn't sort of do the value pricing. What industry, what turnover they'd ideally have, the sort of people I'd like to be dealing with. When you look at the DISC profile with the personality profiles, DISC, what sort of person I'd like to be dealing with. we did not accept quarterly clients, which killed me, because and the reason I found it so hard was everyone's a client for me. I just wanted to get to black belt. So eliminating people or possible clients was the scariest thing for me, but it was the best thing we ever did. We narrowed right in, and especially when I was talking to somebody on the phone, and then my meetings with my accountants, I could tell them these are our ideal clients. Obviously, I know they're not going to fit into this box when you refer them, but ideally, if you come across a client like this, they're the ones we'd love. So there's something that happens, I reckon, with your vision. It gets much more tunnel vision as to who you want to work with. And then when you're doing work for those sort of people, life becomes a lot easier too. And it's like, I use the same principle for finding my partner as well with the ideal. I wrote down my ideal partner and it worked. It's amazing once you get really clear on, we've been together 5 years now. And it's amazing how when you narrow your focus in what you want to achieve and what you want to get out of that, how it just turns up. It's incredible. But I fought doing it with my coach. I wanted to accept everyone.
Yeah, it's a good point. So we're almost, or we're just at the end of the session. Was there, Blair, you've come off mute. Did you want to have a comment before I?
Yeah, when I started my business, that whole find your ideal client, everyone was saying to me, and like, what industry do you want to work with? I'm glad now that since we've had COVID that I didn't put myself in a certain industry, because some bookkeepers were like, I'm only going to work with restaurants. Well, all of a sudden, all your clients have got no work. And then that affects you. Whereas, like I'd say probably 50% of our client base are trade-based clients, and then the other 50 is like a good mix of everything. So during COVID, we still managed to maintain our consistent cash flow and billings because we weren't losing clients to one particular industry. Where and I've heard on Facebook pages other bookkeepers saying, oh, I only do restaurant clients or whatever, and they've really been hit hard because those clients have had to close the doors, so they can't afford to pay their bookkeeper, or there's no bookkeeping work to do because the doors are closed.
Yeah, that's very true. A lot of bookkeepers were hurt from that. So niching into a certain industry, there is a risk there.
Yeah.
And I guess, people are pivoting, as, I think we're all getting sick of the word, but the restaurants are pivoting. That industry is pivoting, albeit, in a limited way. So the bookkeepers also have to pivot in different ways. So especially for the COVID, but yeah, it's, people do suggest go niche, go deep, go narrow and deep. But it is, the risk that you're taking to do that, but you're also getting a lot of benefits from it as well. And I know Ron did we talked about niching last week as well.
He spoke quite a bit on that 2-hour conversation about niching, didn't he? How he thinks it's a really important thing to do.
Yeah, yep. And we've actually got a webinar at the end of the month around niching for the pure bookkeeping licensees, around the app stacks or the app advisory around niching. So it's not just going for an industry, it could be a service or a software, or, we'll discuss that further as well. So next week, Sharon and I are doing a webinar on planning, which I will get Lou, if you could pop the link to the webinar next week. It's a free webinar. So we're going to go a little bit deeper and a little bit broader around how to plan and the restrictions that we put ourselves into. So there's a lot more information that we'll go through next week around the planning as well. And then there'll be an awesome offer at the end of that as well that you could look out for. So register if you are able to attend, or even if you can't, you'll get a copy of the recording and the offer as well. So that is Tuesday at 12 o'clock next week.
Yeah, right. Melbourne time, 11 o'clock Brisbane time. Yeah.
Yep, so we will go a little bit further into it. So yeah, so thank you everyone for joining us today. I hope you got something out of it. It inspired you. Thanks for all the feedback that we get from those that do attend. Love to hear any comments, and thank you so much, Sharon, for joining me. And yeah, great to be on the air again, if you like. It's been over a year, so it's
gone quick. Yeah, it's been really good. Thanks everyone for turning up. Jacqueline, I love your logo. It really pops there behind you. It's awesome.
Yeah, crackerjack.
Yeah, it looks really good.
My job title is Chief Cracker.
That's awesome. It's really lovely.
I have a good friend that's a chiropractor, and she said I stole her title.
Nice. It's really good.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right, lovely. Thanks everyone. See you all. Have a great day.
Thanks everyone. See you. Bye. Bye.